The lunch crowd had just started trickling into the quiet corner cafe, a favorite hidden gem in the heart of the city. Among the usual customers and tired office workers, no one noticed the man who walked in wearing a tailored suit and an air of quiet power. He didn't come with bodyguards, didn't make a scene, yet every detail about him spoke of wealth, control, and success. That man was Nicholas Grant, the billionaire CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world. But today, he wasn't looking to make a deal or be recognized. He just wanted a quiet place to think. Nicholas took a seat near the window and glanced around, his eyes landing briefly on the waitress moving quickly between tables. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with tired eyes and a warm smile she forced even when clearly exhausted. Something about her seemed familiar, though he couldn't place it. But it wasn't until she leaned over to pour his coffee that he noticed it. A delicate silver cross necklace, tucked awkwardly beneath her uniform collar. She had tried to hide it, but for a second, it slipped into view. Their eyes met for a brief moment. She saw that he'd noticed, and without a word, she quickly adjusted her shirt and turned away, her posture suddenly guarded. Something shifted in Nicholas then. He wasn't particularly religious, but he was raised to respect people's beliefs. The way she'd hidden it, like it was something shameful or dangerous, unsettled him more than he expected. Over the next hour, he couldn't shake it. He watched her, how she was overly careful around certain customers, how she hesitated before speaking, and how she seemed to always check her surroundings before reaching for her necklace. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It meant something, and something or someone had made her afraid to wear it freely. Nicholas didn't know why it mattered so much to him. Maybe because, despite all his money and influence, he saw something in her he'd lost a long time ago, faith or courage, or maybe just the quiet strength of someone trying to hold on to who they are. Whatever it was, he had to know more. What he found out next would stop him cold. The reason behind her fear wasn't just personal, it was heartbreaking, and it would force Nicholas to confront something he hadn't in years. The weight of his own silence in a world that often punishes the gentle for being themselves. And that day, over a cup of coffee and a hidden cross, everything started to change. Nicholas couldn't stop thinking about her, not just the necklace, but the way her hands trembled when she thought no one was watching. There was a story behind her eyes, something quiet and buried, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he needed to understand it. He stayed at the cafe longer than he planned, ordering a second coffee he didn't really want just to buy time. When she came to refill his cup, he gently said, "That necklace, it's beautiful." The words made her freeze. She looked at him carefully, like she wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a test. Her hand instinctively went to her collar, tucking the cross even deeper. "Thank you," she said softly, almost apologetically. Then she turned and hurried off before he could say more. Nicholas sat back, uneasy. In his world, symbols like that were worn openly, often for show. At corporate events, people flaunted faith like it was just another accessory. But for her, it wasn't performative. It was personal, protected, hidden. Why? He asked the hostess for her name. "That's Emily," the woman said, barely looking up. "Good girl, quiet, keeps to herself." Later that evening, after making a few discreet calls, Nicholas learned that Emily worked double shifts most days and lived in a small apartment not far from the cafe. No family nearby, no social media presence. Nothing about her online, just quiet, invisible. The next morning he came back, not in a suit this time, but in jeans and a jacket, hoping to seem less like a billionaire CEO and more like just another guy who liked his coffee black. Emily was there, cleaning tables before the doors opened. He approached her gently. "Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable yesterday," he said. "I was just curious. That cross, it reminded me of my mother's." That made her pause. She looked at him again, this time with less fear, more curiosity. "It was my grandmother's," she replied after a moment. "She gave it to me before she passed." "It must mean a lot to you," he said. She nodded, but then her expression changed. Her eyes dropped. Some people don't like seeing it, so I keep it out of sight. It's just easier that way. Nicholas felt something tighten in his chest. Not anger, yet, but a heaviness he hadn't felt in years. "People here?" he asked gently. Emily hesitated. Then she gave a small shrug, the kind that says everything and nothing at the same time. "Some customers. Management. It's not worth the trouble." He wanted to ask more, but she turned back to her work. And just like that, the conversation was over. But Nicholas wasn't done, not even close. Something was wrong here, something deeper than just a necklace. And he had a feeling he was only scratching the surface. Nicholas kept returning to the cafe over the next few days. Each visit, he learned a little more about the rhythm of the place, the regulars, and especially about Emily. She was always polite, always professional, but there was a quiet sadness about her that stuck with him. She moved like someone used to being overlooked, someone who had learned to blend in for her own safety. And each time she noticed him watching, she'd give a small smile, like she appreciated his presence, but didn't quite trust it. One afternoon, he noticed a man in a suit standing near the back, speaking to the cafe manager. He watched Emily out of the corner of his eye, his expression sharp and disapproving. When Emily passed by, the man muttered something under his breath. She flinched but didn't respond. Her shoulders tightened, her hand once again brushing the cross beneath her collar. Nicholas couldn't hear what was said, but the message was clear: don't be seen. Nicholas approached the manager later, pretending to ask about catering services. The manager, not recognizing him, casually mentioned they had to keep things clean and neutral because some customers were sensitive. Nicholas pressed gently, and the manager shrugged. "We just ask our staff not to wear anything that might start conversations, you know. Crosses, hijabs, even political pins. It keeps the complaints down." That didn't sit right with Nicholas. Faith wasn't a fashion statement. For some people, it was survival. It was identity. And yet here, it was something to be hidden to keep the peace. Emily wasn't ashamed of her beliefs. She was being silenced. Back at his office, Nicholas couldn't focus. He stared out the window of his corner suite, the city stretching endlessly below. He built a company that prided itself on inclusion, on freedom of expression, on letting people show up as themselves. And yet a few blocks away, a waitress couldn't wear a simple necklace without fear of losing her job. It didn't add up. He started asking questions. Quietly, a background check on the cafe chain's owners revealed a surprising twist. His own company had recently acquired a majority share through one of its subsidiaries. Without knowing it, Nicholas was indirectly in charge of the place that was forcing Emily to hide a part of herself. That hit hard. Meanwhile, Emily had begun noticing something too. The man who kept coming in wasn't just any customer. People treated him differently, even the manager. Rumors started, whispers in the back room. Who was he really? Why did he keep asking about her? And slowly, beneath the surface, things were shifting. Something was coming. And neither of them knew just how deep this story would go. Nicholas couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling faster than he expected. Every time he walked into the cafe, the tension in the air thickened, like a storm about to break. Emily's cautious glances became sharper, her smiles more forced, and the man in the suit was never far. Nicholas caught him watching Emily closely, his eyes cold and calculating, and for the first time, Nicholas felt the sharp sting of anger. This wasn't just about a necklace anymore. It was about control, fear, and a silent battle happening beneath the surface. Emily confided in a co-worker one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she said, eyes downcast. "They want me to erase who I am just to keep my job." The co-worker nodded, understanding, but said nothing. Fear had woven itself into the fabric of their lives here. Fear of losing work, fear of standing out, fear of what might come next. Nicholas was torn. He wanted to confront the management, to demand answers, but he knew it wouldn't be that simple. There were unseen forces at play: company politics, shareholders, the delicate balance of keeping investors happy while navigating a world where appearances mattered more than truth. His own company's involvement complicated things even more. How could he fight a battle in a place he now owned without making waves that could hurt others? One evening, as the cafe was closing, Nicholas stayed behind, watching Emily clear tables. She looked tired, but there was a quiet resolve in her eyes. When their eyes met, she hesitated but nodded slightly, as if silently asking for help without words. Nicholas stepped closer and whispered, "You don't have to hide." Emily's hands shook as she reached for her necklace. "It's not that simple," she said. "They've made it clear I don't belong here if I'm too visible." Just then, the manager appeared from the back, his face stern. "Mr. Grant," he said sharply, "you need to leave. This isn't a place for games." The words were a warning, but Nicholas could see the fear lurking behind the manager's eyes too. That night, Nicholas left the cafe more determined than ever. He dug deeper, pulling strings, reaching out to people who worked in corporate compliance, human resources, and even local community groups. He learned that Emily's story wasn't unique. Employees across various branches had faced similar pressure to conform, to silence their beliefs to avoid disrupting the workplace. Nicholas realized this was bigger than just one necklace, one waitress, or even one cafe. It was a systemic issue, one that touched on identity, respect, and the courage to stand up in a world that often demanded silence. The next day, he walked into the cafe one last time before making a decision that could change everything. Emily looked up, her eyes meeting his with a mix of hope and fear. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. Nicholas was ready to act, to use everything at his disposal to protect Emily and others like her. But just as he prepared to confront the company's board about the discrimination happening under their watch, a call came that changed everything. It was from someone he hadn't expected, Emily herself. Her voice was trembling, quieter than before, but urgent. "Nicholas, I need to tell you something. It's about why I hide the cross." Curious and concerned, he arranged to meet her after her shift, at a quiet park bench just a few blocks from the cafe. She arrived, looking worn but determined, and finally opened up in a way she hadn't before. What she revealed stunned him. The reason behind her fear wasn't just about workplace rules or management pressure. It was far more personal and dangerous. Years ago, Emily had been part of a small faith community that faced serious harassment. Threatening notes, vandalism, even threats against her family had pushed her to leave everything behind and start over. The cross necklace was a symbol of all she'd lost, and all she was still afraid of losing. Hiding it wasn't about company policy alone, it was about survival. Nicholas listened in silence, the weight of her story pressing down on him. He'd always thought his challenges were tough, but Emily's experience showed him a different kind of struggle, one that money and power couldn't fix easily. Her fears were rooted in real threats, hatred that had chased her across towns and made her afraid to be herself in even the smallest way. The plot thickened when Emily confessed that the man in the suit wasn't just any manager or customer. He was someone connected to the hostile group that had targeted her faith community. She had recognized him from a past encounter, and his presence at the cafe was no accident. He was watching her, waiting, making sure she stayed silent. Nicholas felt a surge of protectiveness mixed with helplessness. This was bigger than workplace discrimination. It was intimidation, a dangerous game designed to break her spirit. But now he was involved, and the stakes were higher than ever. The simple act of wearing a necklace had turned into a battleground for courage, identity, and safety. Determined not to let fear win, Nicholas knew he had to find a way to protect Emily and expose the truth without putting her in more danger. But the man watching them was no ordinary threat. He had resources, connections, and a cold calculation that sent a chill down Nicholas's spine. As they sat there, the sun setting behind them, the quiet park suddenly felt fragile, like the calm before a storm. Emily's story had opened a door Nicholas never expected to walk through. And now, the question wasn't just how to fight injustice, it was how to survive the fight itself. Nicholas knew he couldn't wait any longer. The danger surrounding Emily was real and escalating, and hiding behind corporate protocols wasn't going to protect her. He decided to take matters into his own hands. Using his influence, he arranged a private meeting with the cafe's upper management and the board members of the parent company. The room was tense as Nicholas laid everything out: the discrimination, the intimidation, and the clear threat that Emily was facing from someone connected to a hateful group. Faced with the evidence and Nicholas's unwavering stance, the company had no choice but to act. They promised a full investigation, immediate protection measures for Emily, and a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. For the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to breathe a little easier, wearing her cross openly with a quiet smile. But the story wasn't over. Just as Nicholas thought they had won, the man in the suit reappeared, this time not at the cafe, but outside Nicholas's own office building. It was a reminder that the fight was far from finished. But then came the real shock. The man was arrested. The company's investigation uncovered his involvement in illegal activities linked to the harassment of minority groups, including the threats against Emily. The network he was part of had been under surveillance for months, and Nicholas's courage to speak up helped bring it down faster. Emily's life began to change. She became a symbol of resilience, and Nicholas publicly supported her story, sparking a wider conversation about inclusion, respect, and safety in workplaces everywhere. The cafe chain started a new initiative to support employees' rights to express their faith and identity without fear. But then, just when it seemed the darkest chapter was closing, Nicholas discovered something that hit him even harder. While reviewing company files, he found a letter, an old forgotten message from his own grandmother. It was addressed to him but never sent. In it, she spoke about the importance of faith and standing up for those who can't stand for themselves. The cross necklace Emily wore, it was the same design as the one she had kept hidden in a box for decades. Nicholas realized that his connection to Emily was deeper than chance. Her grandmother's necklace had been lost years ago, stolen during a break-in. And now, through Emily, it had found its way back. The necklace wasn't just a symbol of faith, it was a bridge between two lives, two stories intertwined by courage, hope, and the quiet strength to fight in the face of fear. As Nicholas and Emily stood side by side, the city lights glowing behind them, they both knew this was just the beginning of something bigger. Something neither of them could have imagined when a simple necklace first caught a billionaire's eye. In the weeks that followed, life at the cafe began to change in small but meaningful ways. Emily no longer felt the need to hide her cross necklace beneath her uniform. She wore it proudly, a symbol not only of her faith but of the journey she had taken, from fear and silence to strength and hope. Customers noticed the shift too. Many complimented her courage, and a few shared their own stories of struggle and resilience. It was as if a quiet ripple had started, spreading beyond the walls of that small cafe. Nicholas stayed by her side, not as a billionaire CEO with power and influence, but as a friend who had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest leadership isn't about boardrooms or business deals. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Through Emily's story, he realized how important it was to listen, to see beyond wealth and status, and to recognize the human struggles often hidden beneath the surface. The company's new policies took shape quickly, focusing on respect, inclusion, and safety for all employees. Staff were encouraged to express their identities openly, whether through religious symbols, cultural dress, or personal beliefs, without fear of judgment or retaliation. Workshops on diversity and sensitivity became regular, and stories like Emily's were shared as examples of why those values mattered so deeply. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. For Emily, the necklace was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, faith and courage could guide you through. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and began volunteering with local groups supporting people who faced discrimination or harassment. Her voice, once quiet and cautious, grew stronger as she shared her experiences and helped others find theirs. Nicholas, too, changed. The encounter with Emily shifted his perspective in ways he hadn't expected. He began advocating for greater accountability in his own companies, pushing for real change rather than empty promises. The story of a waitress hiding a simple cross necklace had opened his eyes to the complexity of the world beyond his boardroom windows. In the end, what started as a small moment of noticing, a hidden necklace, a fleeting glance, became a powerful story about humanity, resilience, and the courage to be yourself. It showed that sometimes it's the quietest people who carry the heaviest burdens, and the smallest acts of kindness that can spark the biggest change. And as Emily and Nicholas stood together, two very different lives connected by faith, hope, and unexpected friendship, they knew one thing for sure: the world could be better when we choose to see each other and truly stand together.